The UN's latest report on global hunger shows we're moving backwards. At least 828 million people went hungry one way or another on a daily basis last year. The prices of wheat and other crops have increased exponentially.
People's purchasing power is diminishing. They're getting poorer. Therefore, they eat less. So we are in a situation which I think there is no other better term than to call it a crisis.
We've found ourselves living in a global food crisis. It's likely you're already feeling the impact of the crisis, whether that's seeing higher food prices during your weekly shop or finding limited supplies in the supermarket.
Everything has gone up. Prices have skyrocketed.
With regard to food shortages, yes, we did talk about food shortages, and it's going to be real.
We're in the middle of a climate crisis, and yet we somehow need to feed a growing population at the same time. We have to make change.
This cricket salad could be the key to solving world food shortages. They say it tastes like chicken.
I've always loved anything with black ants because they have such a unique lemon pepper zest flavor.
The end result is snacks. Whole roasted crickets or protein powder for bars and granola. It's a small step towards a big movement. Which is exciting.
Independent journalism in 2023 is a bit complicated. There are thousands of stories floating around, and it's hard to decide which deserve the most attention. Here at Facts Matter, we've been spending a lot of time covering the global food crisis. Maybe you've heard of it.
Good evening. This right here is an American supermarket store shelf.
Food prices are skyrocketing in grocery stores around the world. And if you listen to world leaders, they'll tell you it's due to climate change. And their solution might surprise you.
There are 1,900 edible insect species on the planet.
According to the United Nations, this might actually be your future dinner. Let me explain. The people in charge of some of the most powerful organizations on the planet have determined that agriculture, specifically animal agriculture, is to blame for global warming. And global warming is to blame for the high prices of food as well as food shortages. And so, by switching our diets from beef, chicken, and pork to crickets, ants, and mealworms, we'll be able to stop temperatures from rising, lower the price of food, and possibly to even save the planet. However, on this show, we've spent a lot of time speaking with the food providers, aka the farmers.
John, thank you so much for joining us.
And their story is very different. Their story suggests that these high food prices and these food shortages have little to do with global warming, but instead, they are the direct result of an environmental policy that was conceived over 30 years ago.
The gentlewoman from California is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Earth Summit Environmental Leadership Act, as this is known, presents us with an opportunity to follow up on the important work of the Earth Summit to develop its blueprint, Agenda 21, for global environmental action.
Agenda 21 was meant to be the agenda for the 21st century. Very comprehensive document. If you read it, we're talking hundreds of pages, governing really every facet of life, everything from education to land use policy to economics to law. Every area of life was bound up in there.
Agenda 21, the United Nations Master Plan for Humanity, was enacted in the year 2000. Today, it's more commonly referred to as Agenda 2030, as in the year 2030. Through this policy, the United Nations has established 17 Sustainable Development Goals, things like ending poverty and gender equality. These 17 SDGs are then broken into 169 individual targets, all to be reached by every nation on Earth by the year 2030. Can it be done? Likely not, but it's good to have goals, right?
There is absolutely no way for these Sustainable Development Goals to be implemented, to be tracked, to be monitored without the total obliteration of individual freedom. Some of the goals sound nice, ending hunger. Who could possibly be against ending hunger? Right? The problem is when you set a nebulous goal like that, it requires total power from the state to be able to accomplish that. And of course, they will never accomplish that, right? There's no way to literally eradicate all poverty from the face of the earth, but it gives government and global institutions like the UN an easy excuse to basically do whatever they want under the guise of meeting these goals.
It's true. How can government possibly reach all of these sustainable development goals without micromanaging every aspect of our lives? And obviously that includes food production. And since food is produced literally everywhere in the world, well, the only way to cover this story is to travel the world and to speak with the farmers who are being hit hardest by this agenda.
They're collapsing the current order in order to impose their new order. Look at the Netherlands, their prime minister allows his country under court order to go with this new WEF net zero agenda of stopping modern agriculture. Netherlands is the biggest exporter of meat in Europe. They're shutting down, not the big corporate farms, they're shutting down the small and middle-sized family-run farms.
We have about 120 acres of land. We probably built corn on it for the pigs because we have pigs at our home.
How long has this farm been in your family for?
From 1930.
So that's like 3-4 generations?
Yeah, I'm the fourth generation, yes.
You heard the pigs? We feed them 3 times a day. This is the time they're getting food.
I think we're the last generation. If it go on the way it goes now, there's not a lot of future for the farm. I don't think we can trust the government anymore because they want the land. And in Holland, there are a lot of farmers who already have stopped.
Stopped what? Farming?
Farming.
So these are all farmers? No, maybe not this one.
There's not a farm anymore.
But here's a farm, right?
No, there's also not a farm anymore.
So all these people shut down because of the government policies?
Yeah.
How many farms do you think will shut down in the next few years if the government does what are they planning to do?
I think 50% is go away.
Wow, really? 50%?
If Martin is right, and Holland stands to lose 50% of its farmers, then something is seriously wrong. This is a country that ranks first in the European Union in agricultural exports, producing large surpluses for the food and processing industry every year. So, why does the Dutch government want to eliminate half of its farmers?
About a year ago, politicians were already discussing possible global food shortages. And yet, shockingly to a lot of people, the Dutch government floated this idea that would essentially wipe out 30 to 50% of the farmers here in this country.
Yes.
How could that happen?
So the Netherlands has been a very agricultural country for decades, for centuries even. And in the 1990s, the Dutch government made an agreement with the European Union saying that we would have a certain percentage of hay, clover and moss on our countryside. And then, of course, in the past 20 years, we had a great growth of our farming sector, which, as a consequence, mean that we emit more nitrogen oxide. And nitrogen oxide is a fertilizer. It's a natural fertilizer, which causes the countryside to change. And what Dutch politicians have then done, they've spinned this as bad for nature and bad for the environment. But it's not bad for nature or bad for the environment, it's simply that it changes a little bit. We get a little bit more trees and a little bit less clover and hay. So basically there was a choice for Dutch politicians. They could have said, look, European Union, we're really sorry, but we're not going to live with these absurd standards from the 1990s anymore. That was option A. Option B was to disown and expropriate 50% of our farmers. And that's what they've chosen.
In 2021, the European Union's Natura 2000 network released a map of areas in the Netherlands that are now protected against nitrogen emissions. Any Dutch farmer who operates their farm within 5 kilometers of a Natura 2000 protected area would now need to severely curtail their nitrogen output. which in turn would limit their production.
The nitrogen problem is something they made up. It's one big lie. The nitrogen has nothing to do with environmental. It's just getting rid of the farmers.
Do you guys drink the raw milk?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You think raw milk is fine?
Do you see my son? Yeah. Oh, I gave him raw milk.
What's happening to the farmers here locally? Are a lot of them selling shop?
No, at the moment you can't even sell it because because of the regulations. The properties are kind of worthless. Another farmer can't buy our land because he's not allowed to be a farmer there as well. So if you can't sell your property, then it's worthless. And I think the government can take it just without buying it. They don't even have to buy it. They just take it.
And like, what do you think they would do with it? Do you think they would develop it into apartments or?
Yeah, they say they need a lot of land for building houses. We have so many immigrants coming over here at the moment, and they say, yeah, we need houses for them, so that's why we need your land. It looks like they want to make Holland one big city.
One problem I see is that in the countryside, a lot of upside-down Dutch flags, a lot of the red handkerchiefs flying, you know, in solidarity with the farmers. But when you go into the big cities, we talk to people, young people don't even know what's going on.
No.
So it might be that like only when the store shelves are empty, they finally realize like, oh, what's going on?
Exactly.
Right?
Then it's too late.
Then it's too late.
Yeah. Yeah, but it is happening.
We have here a farm with milking cows and chickens, about 200 cows and 50,000 hens for the years.
How are the nitrogen policies going to affect your farm?
According to the map, we have to reduce half.
Half?
Half.
Would you be able to do that?
I don't know. I think we might have to shut down one barn.
What are these silos here? What are these?
There's feed.
Of feed, wow.
3 kinds of feed, for the small ones, the middle ones, and the bigger ones.
Do you think if the nitrogen policy goes into effect, the price of the feed is going to go higher?
This last year, the price is 60-70% higher. 30 to 40 euro more per pig.
So based on that Natura 2000 map that the government released,
yes,
how much will you have to cut?
So far this region is minus 12%, 12% less cows. This is going too far. This is throwing farmers out of business.
Can you tell me about your farm? Like, how many cows do you have, and how long has it been in your family for?
For as long as I know, I'm the 6th generation of farmer.
And how many cows do you have?
I have 58 cows now. I know them all. We've been very good for them. If I hear screaming, I wake up and I go to the barn in my underwear. That's how it goes.
It's not a job. It's 24/7.
When they want me to stop being a farmer, they have to beat me to death probably. So I'll go somewhere else and be a farmer.
Before we started filming, you were telling me about the government has a new nitrogen proposal.
Yep.
So what would happen to your farm if that goes into effect?
The area where I'm in has to reduce 90 to 95%.
90 to 95%.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? How many cows are you going to have left?
6.
6.
Easy counting.
You cannot make a proper living with 6 milking cows.
So this is what? This is about, you said 58 cows? Or and so again, if the nitrogen rules go into effect, 95% of these cows you have to get rid of.
90 or 95. They want me to produce less nitrogen.
Where are the plants that they want to protect? Is it just this grass?
Now in the back there's the dunes. They're on the coastline. That's the Natura 2000 area.
What on the dunes are they trying to protect?
There are some plants that can't handle the nitrogen.
So if it has too much nitrogen, this plant just dies, or
yeah.
What happens?
it doesn't grow. I don't know how it works exactly.
So again, to protect this right here, your farm has to cut 95% of its nitrogen.
Yeah.
But it's also a balance, right? Because like, yeah, if you want to eliminate all farming and all humans and all everything, sure, everything will grow naturally, but then you don't have any food. So it's like the solution, actually, it sounds good on paper, it sounds good in government, but in practical terms, it doesn't have the good effect.
That is the biggest problem. They make up a lot of things, but they don't know how it works. But I think it's a scam.
Well, it's a scam that'll get them your land.
It's clear that these strict Dutch nitrogen policies are crippling the farmers who have been feeding this country for decades. But do the benefits of protecting these nitrogen-averse plants outweigh the costs that these farmers are paying?
Hi, Petra. This is Roman. I'm a reporter here in the Netherlands from America.
We reached out to the Department of Agriculture to get their side of the story, but unfortunately, they were not available. So instead, we turned to a nitrogen expert who was tasked with analyzing the government's own nitrogen model.
You were working for the government committee
yes.
to study the nitrogen.
Yes.
You were given a model.
Yes. The whole policy is based on the deposition model about how to deal with nitrogen's emissions on nature areas. And I looked at the validation studies and showed that the model is actually crap. It doesn't work. And doesn't matter, they still continue using it, which is, in a sense, unsettling. I mean, really, can we do such a thing in terms of policy? Use a model which doesn't work? It's never about innovation, it's always about getting rid of farmers.
When you look at it from a global level, if let's say consumption here in the Netherlands and worldwide for things like beef and dairy products don't go down, sure, you might lower your farming, but that farming is going to happen somewhere else.
It's a classical trade-off. If you don't do it here, you do it somewhere else. I mean, nitrogen emissions are part of the equation of agriculture, so you want to optimize that. And guess what? The Netherlands is pretty good at optimizing agriculture. We've done this for the past 1,000 years. We're really good at it. So if you would actually shift production to somewhere else, you are absolutely sure that emissions will increase.
So ironically, it's almost like if you globally want to reduce emissions, you should have more agriculture here in the Netherlands.
Absolutely. It's the epitome of a dumb idea to scrap agriculture here because it has to be maintained somewhere else or increased somewhere else. So we're a bit of a bind in the Netherlands with respect to nitrogen policies.
So if this isn't about nitrogen, what is it about?
I've always said that the nitrogen crisis is, first of all, a made-up crisis. It's manufactured. And the only solution that is ever being proposed is forced expropriation. So it is the government that will take hold of their land.
What do you think some of the reasons are for the government trying to take the land from the farmers?
We have a housing crisis in the Netherlands. As you know, this is a very tiny country. We have a lot of people, and we have a growing population because of immigration. And we need places to house those immigrants, and I think that that's partly why the government wants that land. They need houses, and they need to build houses, which is funny because apparently building houses is also what emits nitrogen, but that's not the people they're coming after. They're coming specifically after the farmers because they want the land. So that is the ultimate goal.
What Eva is saying makes a lot of sense. As the world gets more populated, land obviously becomes more valuable, and thus he who has the land has the power. In America, government support for Agenda 2030 is strong, but this country was founded by farmers, and land ownership is the key ingredient which protects the American people from government rule.
What did the Founding Fathers envision property rights to look like in America?
The concept in America is self-rule, that we the people will rule our government. And our Founding Fathers understood that the small landholder is the most important part of the state. The idea was that the land would be distributed among the people so they could always control their government. California has developed a 30 by 30 plan. They're pushing 30 by 30 in the state. And this is their map of protected areas.
I'm here today to advance an effort to preserve and protect over 30% of the state's lands.
On October 7th of 2020, California Governor Gavin Newsom signed an executive order which made California the first state in the nation to commit to a 30 by 30 goal. It was a pledge to put 30% of the land and water in the state under government control by the year 2030.
30 by 30 by 2030 is the mandate.
The ultimate agenda is that there is no ownership of land, so that we don't own anything. We either own property or we are property. That's really what we're fighting from the global governance perspective. They have to eliminate our ability to control our government, which means they have to take our land.